Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 15th and tonight's movie is La Llorona. In 2019, there were two La Llorona movies. One was made in America and is part of the Conjuring cinematic universe and was panned. The other is from Guatemala and was critically praised. The latter is what I'm going to be watching today. For those who don't know, La Llorona is a Latin American folkloric figure that is the vengeful spirit of a woman who walks around bodies of water crying, and if you hear her crying, it's a bad omen, you'll get bad luck or die even. The Guatemalan movie takes that idea and applies it to a much more politically charged story. They call him a dictator, some political figure who they say committed a genocide, at least in the trailer, and apparently he and his family are getting hunted by a vengeful spirit. I don't know if this is limited to just being haunted by a ghost. I saw a reference to the Plague of the Frogs in the trailer. In the urban legend, La Llorona is a woman who drowned her children. She's not really a ghost that haunts evil people so that they get justice or something. Maybe this isn't even La Llorona, it's just a name that someone gives this ghost haunting them, I don't know. The dictator in this movie is based on a real leader in Guatemalan history who actually is accused of committing genocide, and that is one big giant can of worms I am leaving alone for the sake of this review. I'm going to stick with the things I'm a lot more qualified for, which is talking about how good this is a horror movie. I'm gonna go check it out. That was certainly one of the movies I have ever seen in my life. I think I'm going to give La Llorona a 6 out of 10. It does do what it sets out to do, and it does it just fine. It's just very slow and doesn't really feel like a horror movie. It kind of takes the Del Toro approach, where the supernatural thing is the really interesting part, but it seems to kind of just take a back seat for a political drama going on at the same time. I definitely think I got the wrong impression about this movie from the fact that it was called La Llorona. This is not about the folklore. Probably the biggest problem with this movie is just how slow it's paced. I was 50 minutes into the movie and I said, I'm still waiting for this to start feeling like a horror movie. Because most of it was just setting up the situation of this general who used to be a dictator or something. And this is based on the Guatemalan genocide of the Mayan people. So I'm not trying to diminish that event. I'm just diminishing that part of the movie. It's just giving us the setup of the situation, and it takes a while for us to actually get to the good part. Also, there are a lot of long takes in this movie. There are plenty of scenes in this film that are all done in one shot. I don't really know how much of a purpose that ultimately served. I guess it did make things feel a little bit more uncomfortable than it otherwise would at some points, but a lot of times it just made the movie feel very stagnant, like you're just sitting there waiting for something to happen. One thing I will give the movie is that it does accurately portray the way it does feel to be caught in the crossfire of some sort of huge conflict. Because most of the people in the house never did anything wrong, or at least never had anything to do with the wrong thing that the dictator or ex-dictator is getting punished for. But they're being hurt just from the fact that they're close to him. The same applies to war, genocide, war crimes, everything in between. And I do think that was communicated rather well in this movie. I don't really have a lot else to say before I go into spoilers. I actually think you would appreciate this movie a lot more if you did know a bit more than I do about the history of Latin America, Guatemala in particular. But for me, it was just kind of okay, I guess. Alright, now let's talk about some spoilers. Right away, the movie is telling you loud and clear that they want you to believe that this new hire they got, most of the staff quit after the first, paranormal incident, and this one lady starts working at the house. The movie is dropping a lot of breadcrumbs that she is La Llorona. Anything from saying that she had 2 kids, but they're both dead, to things that are a lot less subtle, for example, her holding the little granddaughter's head underwater for extended periods of time, and then when that girl's mother sees what's happening and rightfully freaks out, the daughter's like, no, she was just teaching me how to hold my breath underwater. And I'm sure the next thing they were going to do is play the game of, let's just shout murder. They were so open with that, I thought it was a red herring. It actually wasn't. I was also wondering for most of it if it wasn't actually supernatural and it was just the old man losing his mind, because every time he would do something as a result of La Llorona, the rest of the family would have no idea what he was even talking about. But no, later on in the movie, the other members of the family, particularly his wife, started experiencing strange occurrences as well. There was one moment in particular that I thought was actually pretty clever. I'm fairly sure this is what was happening in this scene. I might be wrong. I don't think I am. But there was a point where the new lady, Alma, was sitting by the window with the little girl, Sarah, and they were like looking at pieces of paper in front of them and then looking out at the protesting crowd outside the house because for pretty much the entire movie, there's this large protesting crowd outside the family's house because the ex-dictator was found not guilty of committing genocide. But anyway, they were saying stuff like, oh, that looks like him, that looks like him. And I thought they were talking about, oh, that looks like your grandpa. Because at one point very early in the movie, the little girl, Sarah, asks, why do people say these things about grandpa? And a lot of the protesters had signs with drawings or pictures of him when he was younger. But then when the little girl's mom comes up and looks at the papers, there are like different pictures of people who have died in the conflict that they were talking about. And when she sees one man on a poster, she looks up and sees that exact same man in the crowd. The spirit seems to follow like the Oculus playbook of not even really doing anything per se, as much as just making other people do things or influencing them to do things. A few times in the movie, the old dictator's wife has dreams about her being a mother in the genocide conflict. And by the end of it, it's revealed that this is exactly what happened to Alma, the new housekeeper. And that the Alma at their house was her ghost who is getting revenge for all the things that happened to her and her children because of the things that the grandpa did. It's the grandma who actually chokes the grandpa out and kills him, and then when it like snaps back to reality, you see that 3 other people in the house were just sitting there watching it happen. And throughout the movie, I did think it was a little bit odd that they were focusing so hard on just this one man who was the face of this genocide, as opposed to a bunch of other people that I also assume played a big part in it. But the very last part of the movie is one of those generals you saw talking with him at the beginning of the movie about this military or post-war tribunal. You see him start to get haunted by La Llorona, seeing the water flooding the floor, hearing a woman crying, and that's when the movie ends. So, overall, not great, not bad, a little slow, does have some clever moments. Overall, it was just kind of average to me. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.